Well, it's better late than never for Framber Valdez. And you know what? It looks like someone's actually trying to win the American League Central.
You are Locked On MLB, your daily MLB podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, baseball fans, and welcome to Locked On MLB, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every day. Excuse me, I adjust my headset. This is the podcast we talk about all of Major League Baseball. I'm your host, Paul Francis Sullivan. Please call me Sully, and thank you so much for making the Locked On Podcast Network the number one sports podcasting network out there. Follow us at Locked On MLB Pods on Twitter or whatever it's called these days, and on Instagram. If you want to follow me, I'm your pal Sully. I'm at Sully Baseball Podcast on Instagram. If you want to get a hold of me there, if you're an Everydayer Club, get a hold of me through the Discord. But the best way to get a hold of me is right here on the YouTube page. And if you are an Everyday Sully listener, then please, when you comment here, use that hashtag. Where is it? Everyday Sully. Now, I got to scratch my nose. I'm doing a live one today because I have been talking about the potential signing of Framber Valdez for a couple weeks now. Now, the New York Metropolitans desperately need starting pitching. The Baltimore Orioles need starting pitching in a big way. And a bunch of other teams need some starting pitching in a very, very big way. And for some reason, this is a situation where the Tigers said, all right, we'll jump in. We will jump in and sign Framber Valdez. Now, let's go through a little bit of what the signing was all about. It's a 3-year, $115 million deal. There's a 20-minute signing bonus. There's some deferred money, and it's a 3-year deal. It's not a huge long-term deal. It has great annual value for it, and you have someone who is one of the top ground ball pitchers in the league, a 2-time All-Star, a person who gives you a whole bunch of innings. This could be a little bit wild, but he gives you a bunch of innings, has a good strikeout to walk ratio, has a decent, pitches usually to a very good ERA, and has come up big in the postseason. And for some reason, got to February 4th where someone finally signed him. Now, as I said before, that's a little bit of a red flag. Every single major league team could use a Framber Valdez. By the way, I love that the Pittsburgh Pirates supposedly kicked the tires. I have no idea if that was real or not. They got Mike Clevenger, who has his own baggage with him and is a far cry from Framber Valdez to join the rotation. But hey, at least for a few minutes, Pirate fans thought of Skeens and Valdez. But now he's off to the Detroit Tigers. And the Tigers, they needed to get another reliable starting pitcher in their rotation. We'll get into Skubal in just a second. Obviously, they have Jack Flaherty. Then they have Reese Olson and Casey Mize. You're taking a lot of pressure off of Olson and Mize and Flaherty if you have Skubal and Framber Valdez at the top of their rotation. If you get a good Skubal year, and again, we're going to get into a lot of things with Skubal in a second. If you have a good Skubal year, you have a good Valdez year, and you have a good Flaherty year. I'm not talking about any one of them being a Cy Young Award winner, although Skubal winning back-to-back Cy Young Awards has to be at least considered a possibility. But a good Skubal year, a good Framber Valdez year, a good Jack Flaherty year, and then all of a sudden, you take a lot of the pressure off of Reese Olson and Casey Mize. If one of them has a decent season, all of a sudden you have a 4-man rotation. You have a good 4-man rotation for a talented team. They brought in Kenley Jansen, who he had a very good year with the Red Sox a few years ago. Obviously, he's had a fine career. I've also seen him blown huge games for the Dodgers over the years. Kyle Finnegan, okay. I think they probably could use another left-hander in the bullpen. But there you go. You have, when you take a look at you have, Torkelson, Torres, McKinstry, you have Riley Green, Parker Meadows. I mean, their lineup is fine. Their lineup is fine and can be explosive. And you have, you now have this, you have a solid rotation. There's one thing we got to remember. And, Tiger fans, kind of close your ears when I say this. On the 10th day of September, the Detroit Tigers obliterated the New York Yankees for the second straight game and looked like it was men versus boys. On that particular game, Flaherty won. It was an 11-1 game, and the Tigers just made mincemeat out of the Yankees. At that moment, on the 10th day of September, basically the beginning of mid-September, with just a little more than 2 weeks to go in the season, the Detroit Tigers had, say it with me, the best record in the American League. They went to September 10th, going to September 11th, with the best record in the American League. If they had a mediocre final few weeks of the season, they had 16 games left. Let's say they went 8-8. If they went 8-8, they would have won 92 games. Would have been 92 games and would have had home field advantage in the division series. I think that's true. But they would have had 92 wins. Instead, we all know what happened. They lost 13 out of their final 16 games, and Cleveland won 14 out of their last 17 games. And Cleveland, who were 9.5 games back on September 10th and trailing the Texas Rangers, lest we forget, Cleveland wound up winning the division. Now, they're trying to correct that. And one of the things that happens when you have a monumental collapse like that, you see it's in the starting pitching staff more likely than not. Now, lest we forget also, Detroit got their revenge on Cleveland because they beat them in the wild card series, and they almost won the division series against Seattle. That phenomenal Game 5 was off the charts. They had a lead in Game 5 with Tarik Skubal on the mound. So there would have been, would they have beaten the Toronto Blue Jays? Probably not, but you never know. The team could get on a roll, just as the Texas Rangers a few years ago. But the thing I like about this, yes, there are tremendous red flags about Framber Valdez. We know he did the whole cross-up thing with the catcher, which sucks. There's whispers about he's not the best teammate in the world, and maybe that could be true. I don't know the answer to that. And also, there was a big nosedive in his pitching in the second half of the year. And we've seen, I've made this point before, even with great starting pitchers, when they start to fall apart, that tends to be the end of it. Whether it's Corbin Burns, Madison Bumgarner, we've seen some tremendous pitchers who, when acquired by a team, think, oh, this is going to be great, and they turn into Busterinos. Remember, multiple teams were salivating over Carl Pavano at one point. So there are times a pitcher can crash and burn. And seeing that he's on the wrong side of 30, sometimes that's when that happens. So this could go south in an awful hurry for the Detroit Tigers. Or they could have a terrific 1-2 punch and basically become the team to beat in the American League. Not just the American League Central, but the American League. But an interesting thing is going on because this signing was not done in a vacuum. Nope. It was done with their superstar pitcher going to arbitration. And is this a chance to have a great 1-2 punch? Or is this a way to cover your butt and make a deal that nobody wants to see happen? All right, let's talk about our friends over at TurboTax. The tax season doesn't have to take over your life. This year, TurboTax is making it easier than ever to just hand things off and move on with your day. With TurboTax Full Service, You can have your taxes done for you by a trusted local expert, start to finish, without the stress or guesswork. Instead of spending hours trying to figure out forms, you can meet with local TurboTax experts in person or collect online. They handle everything. Connect online is what I meant to say. We're doing this live. They handle everything from W-2s to self-employed forms and work to get you every deduction. You can upload your documents, go about your day, and get updates right in the TurboTax app. It's a huge time saver and gives real peace of mind knowing an expert is handling it. For a limited time, you can have your taxes done by a local TurboTax expert for just $150 all in. If a TurboTax expert didn't file for you last year, just file by February 28th. Take taxes off your plate. Get back to your life. Visit TurboTax.com/local to book your appointment today. Thanks so much for making Locked On MLB your first listen of the day and for making us the #1 sports podcasting network. If you haven't already, go check out the new Everydayer Club. You get ad-free audio of the Locked On MLB show. It's similar to Apple Podcasts or Spotify. And you can check me out because I'm always at the Everydayer Club Discord and chatting with the fans over there. Check us out at lockedonmlb.supercast.com. Hey, let's talk about the trivia question. Trivia question for the last time when we had the talked about the big trade with the Mariners and St. Louis and Tampa. Trivia question goes as such. How many Cardinals were selected in the 1976 expansion draft by the Mariners and Blue Jays? And I think someone figured out it was going to be a trick question. Argono Comedy, who said Everyday Sully, says no St. Louis players were drafted by the Mariners nor Toronto. Should be nor Toronto there. That's right. No Cardinals were selected, but a bunch of Yankees and A's were. And so they made rules after that draft that you can't just raid one team and leave other teams away. You can only draft a certain number of players from each team. So there you go on that. All right, let's. There a comment came in here from the Enigma 2004. Let me get this straight. Detroit is willing to pay $38 million a year to Framber Valdez, yet balked at Skubal's $32 million request in arbitration. Make that make sense. I can't, except for the fact that people like shiny objects on other teams as opposed to their own players. Yeah, it's strange that this is happening at the same time as the Tarik Skubal arbitration case. There's two ways this can go. Three ways. First way is this, and this is what I hope is happening. The Tigers say, yeah, we got Skubal next year, no matter what. And now we have Valdez, and we have the best 1-2 punch in the American League, arguably. And we're in the American League Central, which is not exactly a stacked superstar division. Cleveland is going to be very good, as they always are, but they're also cheap, and did I mention cheap? And disgracefully cheap, because if they had, as I said before, if they raised their payroll from bottom 5 to number 15, just improve stuff. You don't have to spend like the Dodgers. Just spend like a mid-level team, then they would have a legit shot of winning the pennant. I know they could win the pennant. They won the pennant in 2016 with a very, very low payroll. But do you know what? Why be an outlier when you can just have a mediocre payroll and win a pennant? Well, the Tigers are looking around and say, okay, the White Sox are improving, but they're not winning anything yet. The Twins, are they rebuilding? Are they not? They traded everything away, but they're still keeping on a bunch of their assets. I think they're waiting to see if they collapse down the opening third of the season, and then they're going to trade away anything that isn't nailed down. Kansas City obviously has talent. Cleveland obviously overtook Detroit, but Detroit is now going for its third straight postseason appearance, and they smell blood in the water. They want to win that division. And having Skubal and Valdez at the top of the rotation, that ain't bad, to paraphrase Jack Nicholson in Mars Attacks. Yeah, I'm going deep in my references today. But they also could be creating a insurance policy. Now, if you have a pitcher like Tarik Skubal, I mean, you got to sign him. The iron is hot, and you have a chance to win the American League Central for the next, I don't know, possibly 3 or 4 years. Also, things can fall apart in an awful hurry. If you don't believe me, look at the Chicago White Sox. In 2021, they won the division, had a team filled with stars who were all signed long-term, and it looked like they had the deed for the American League Central for the next 3 or 4 years. And then it all fell apart, like in a year. So for the Tigers, they know the window of opportunity is right now. And they know, as of this recording, they'll have the Skubal and Valdez 1-2 punch. There is the potential ugliness of them going through arbitration and realizing there's no way we can sign this guy long term. So now we got a potential number one starter on the squad. So let's trade Tarik Skubal and get a package of at least 2, hopefully 3, ready to put on the major league roster quality players. Now, I'm leery of those types of trades because how often do they work? Almost never. They almost never work. When you trade away an ace pitcher and you get a big pile back, I mean, the number of times you can point to where it worked, I mean, in recent years. I'm not talking about in the 80s when the Twins were able to flip Frank Viola for 3 key parts of the team that won the 1991 World Series, or the Mariners flipping Mark Langston for Randy Johnson. I'm talking now teams hoard their prospects to the point where they can't use them all. And you're not going to get enough talent back for Tarik Skubal to make up for losing Tarik Skubal, no matter how many top prospects you get from him. So if I'm the Detroit Tigers, I don't want to end this rumor, I'm not. Maybe this is when you say, and this is where the Enigma 2004 has a great point. Maybe at that point you just say, do you know what? Let's throw out a 4-year deal. Let's throw out a 4-year deal. So Tiger fans know that in 2026, Tigers are all in. Who knows what's going to happen in 2027? Hopefully cooler heads will prevail and we'll have a season in 2027. When everyone comes back in 2028, they still have the top 2 in there. And then you have 2029. And so you're not tying it up forever, but you have this great 1-2 punch. If you're not going to do that, then you have to make a deal because you can't have what happened with the Angels and Shohei Ohtani, where you get nothing for it. You'd rather get something for it. But I really, really, really hope that's not what the Tigers are doing. I really hope they're saying, hey, okay, it's weird that they value the Astros star pitcher more than their own. But the other message that could be being sent out to Skubal is, we're trying to win here. You have a chance to win as a Tiger. And you're still the freaking ace. And let's make this work. Again, it's not my money. I grant you that. But the fact of the matter is, why own the team if you're not trying to win? You have a clear lane. A mediocre final 2.5 weeks, you win the division last year. And now you just added Framber Valdez. And you have a team that's willing to dust themselves off from this nasty feeling of the humiliating final couple of weeks of the 2025 season. And why have the Skubal thing hanging over your head? You know, we all thought that the Vlad Guerrero Jr. contract was going to hang over the head over the Toronto Blue Jays. And then they said, screw it. And they signed him. And look what happened. He relaxed, the team relaxed, and you didn't have that terrible sense there. But we'll see. We will see. And with that, we come back. I want to talk a little bit about the rest of the division and another Detroit Tigers ace who, sadly, we have to say goodbye to. All right, let's talk about our good friends over at Indeed. Now, hiring. Some of you are hiring, some of you are not. But I'll tell you something. Hiring isn't just about finding someone willing to take the job. It's about finding the right person with the right background who can actually help your business move forward. And if you want candidates who match what you're looking for, Indeed Sponsored Jobs is the move. Because instead of hoping the right person stumbles across your post, Indeed helps you match with quality candidates by boosting your job listening to the people who fit your specific criteria, life skills, certification, and location. Now, if you're hiring, you just don't want someone who can help. You'd want someone with real experience who can jump in. That's what you're going to love about Indeed. You get specific and target exactly what you need. It saves time because you're spending less energy sorting through mismatches. And with Sponsored Job, your posts get seen by candidates who are an actual fit. And here's a stat that says it all. In the 1 minute I've been talking to you, companies like yours made 27 hires on Indeed, according to Indeed data worldwide. So if you're hiring, spend less time searching and more time interviewing candidates who check all your boxes with Indeed Sponsored Jobs. Listeners of the show will get $75 of sponsored job credit to help you get your job the premium status it deserves at Indeed.com/podcast. That's Indeed.com/podcast. Terms and conditions apply. Hiring, do it the right way with Indeed. Indeed. See if you can tell when the button was sticking and I was clicking it and I couldn't get the bumper to go on there. Oh dear. Do you know what? That's what happens when you do it live. Cleveland won the division the last few years and they're still a super talented team and you bet against them at your own peril. Man, I would love to see a Cleveland-Milwaukee World Series. I just think that'd be amazing. Also, you have the Royals, who have arguably the best player in the division when Bobby Witt Jr. is firing on all cylinders. You have the White Sox, who are improving, but they're not quite there yet. The Twins they're in that sort of neutral zone. This is the Tigers' division to lose. And because of that, I hope they keep everyone together. Play 1 year. Try to go for it. And have that pitching depth in the postseason. Winning a title for the first time since 1984 is going to be such a huge relief for Detroit and their fans. And do you know what? It's something that I think that they have to, and did I mention have to, fire on all cylinders and make that work. Well, look, the Tigers, we're talking about Tigers pitching. And the Tigers pitching where you have their new ace, their back-to-back Cy Young ace, and then today we found out that we lost a great Tiger pitcher from the past, Mickey Lolich, who played many years with the Detroit Tigers and was a beloved figure in the history of the Detroit Tigers, died today. Lolich was an interesting figure in Detroit Tigers history. He was a 3-time All-Star and he was a really solid pitcher in 1968 and became an All-Star after that and had his best years under Billy Martin in 1971 and 1972. He was the runner-up of the Cy Young Award in 1972. In 1971, he led the American League with, say it with me, 376 innings pitched. He struck out 308 batters in 376 innings pitched. He started 45 games, completing 29 of them. The next year, he only completed 23 and only threw 327 and a third pitches, where he finished third place in the Cy Young Award. He wound up finishing his career being bounced around a little bit between the Mets and the San Diego Padres, but he was a very solid pitcher, a super reliable ace that Billy Martin loved when he managed the Tigers to the 1972 postseason. And it was kind of a big burly dude from the Pacific Northwest. His greatest accomplishment, and the thing that people will talk about in his obituary, is the fact that he was the World Series MVP in 1968. Now, in a vacuum, his stats were amazing. He pitched 3 games in that World Series. He won all 3 of them. He allowed 5 earned runs in 27 innings, struck out 21 and only walked 6 in the 3 complete game victories. It was a pitcher on the mound when the Tigers won the World Series. But there's another element to it, which, believe it or not, those stats are great. But he won a game that was impossible to win. He won a game that it was ordained by the gods that it was a loss. It's difficult to really articulate what a brilliant pitcher Bob Gibson was. He pitched game 2 of the 1964 World Series. He pitched 8 innings and lost. After that, he was a machine. He pitched two more complete game victories in the 64 World Series, was on the mound when he clinched the World Series for the Cardinals over the New York Yankees. The next year, he pitched 3 complete game victories against a surging Boston Red Sox team to clinch the World Series for the Cardinals and hit a home run to boot in the Game 7 victory. Once again, was a pitcher on the mound when they won the World Series. He had pitched, say it with me, 5 straight complete game victories going into the 1968 World Series. And what did he do for an encore? Facing 30-game winner Denny McLain, he struck out 17 batters in a complete game shutout for game 1. So that means it was 6 straight complete game victories in the World Series. Handed them ball in game 4 of the World Series that year. He made it, he made it 7 straight complete game victories. We struck out 10 in 9 innings. And with the Cardinals up 3-1, it was a foregone conclusion that the World Series was over, because there was no way the Cardinals were going to lose 3 games in a row, especially when they knew Bob Gibson was pitching one of them. Lolich forced a game 6, and then the Tigers ambushed Ray Washburn to force a game 7, but it was a foregone conclusion. Bob Gibson was incapable of losing a postseason game. So it didn't matter what Mickey Lolich did, except it was scoreless going into the 7th. And Curt Flood, normally a great fielding center fielder, fell, allowing a triple by Jim Northrup, a 2-out triple. There was 2 outs and nobody on. And somehow they rallied and got the triple and somehow they were up 3-0, eventually 4-0. And Lolich came out and pitched a complete game victory and earned it for the Detroit Tigers. It was one of the most startling and unlikely victories of a single game in the history of baseball. And one of those moments where you say, yeah, it's written in stone that this player is going to come through, and they didn't. The only other time a World Series Game 7 was handed to someone where it was a bigger foregone conclusion that it was a victory, it didn't come through, was when Mariano Rivera blew the save in Game 7 of the 2001 World Series. And I think that the Gibson loss was even bigger than the Rivera loss. And it was Mickey Lolich who got that victory and had a remarkable career, 300 innings, multiple years with the Detroit Tigers. So rest in peace, Mickey Lolich, a great Tiger ace of the past. And then we have 2 great Tiger aces of the present. And for Tiger fans, they're hoping this is going to be the year. But thanks so much for tuning into Locked On MLB. Tomorrow's show, I promise, I've teased this show. We're going to talk a little bit about the Beltran cheating versus the A-Rod cheating, and then I have something I want to talk about for Black History Month. Do you want subscribe, follow, and follow us at Locked On MLB Pods on Twitter or whatever it's called these days. And if you never miss an episode, join the Everydayer Club. It's built for you. Get Locked On MLB ad-free. Members-only Discord. I'm there. I interact. It's a lot of fun. And you can go to the first ever 24/7 National Locked On Podcast Network YouTube channel. Now let's go through the trivia question. I mentioned that Mickey Lolich victory in Game 7 of the 1968 World Series, but it was not. He had a shutout with 2 outs in the bottom of the 9th, but someone hit a home run for the Cardinals, and that's the trivia question. Who homered for the Cardinals' only run in their Game 7 1968 World Series loss? That is the trivia question, and put it down below. All right, folks, talking about Tigers pitching. Are they stockpiling aces, or are they creating an insurance plan in case they have to trade one of them? This has been Locked On MLB. I'm your host, Paul Francis Sullivan. Please call me Sully.